be simplifying the following expressions. So again, remember using the order of operations here. When we're doing the order of operations, we want to work on the inside parentheses first. Okay. Now there's nothing we can really simplify here with this x minus 3. And you can see this is the most inner parenthesis, right? Because it's a parenthesis inside of bracket, but there's nothing we can simplify. So now I'm going to work inside the bracket. And the only thing we can apply here is going to be the first thing we can apply, actually, I should correct, is going to be the distributive property, right? And subsequently over here, we can do this exact same thing. Like we can do these at the same time. They're not in contrast with each other. Like not one is going to become the other. They're both kind of separate expressions, right? You can see how they're separated by this addition problem. So we can do them kind of at the same time. All right. So in this case here, I'm going to have a 2 times x, which is a 2x minus a 6 plus a 2. All right. And then plus here, this is going to be a 5x minus a 15. All right, so now in here, now again, I want to simplify what's inside this parenthesis. Now, the only thing I can combine here is the -6 and the -6 and the +2, which is going to give me a -4. So therefore, I have a 3 times a 2x minus 4. And then here it's just going to be a plus a 5x minus a 15. All right, we still need to get rid of these parentheses here. So remember, like brackets are the same, are just a grouping symbol like parentheses. So I can apply the distributive property again here with these brackets. So therefore, that's going to now give me a 6x minus a 12 plus a 5x minus a 15. And now what I can do is I can use the associative property to rewrite these expressions and put the variables next to each other and the numbers next to each other. So therefore, I have a 6x plus a 5x minus a 12 minus a 15, right? So 6x plus 5x is going to be an 11x, and -12 minus 15 is going to be a -27. And voila, there we go. All right, now in this next example though, what I'm going to do is like, so here we don't have like brackets and parentheses, right? But what we do have is we have variables that are not raised to the same power. So these are raised to the second power, right? These are raised to the first power. All right. And here's just going to be a constant. So the main thing I always like to do whenever you're trying to like simplify an expression here is to make sure that you reorder them so things are next to each other, right? That's what we call the associative property. And you can only do that across addition. So what sometimes gets confusing here with students is they're like, well, this is minus an 8x. So how can you like associate that? You know, how can you put that next to the 9x? Well, again, remember what we did previously, right? You can add a negative is the same thing as subtracting. So what I can do is I can rewrite this as a 9x squared plus a negative 8x squared, right? And then here I can just rewrite this is already next to each other. So that's cool. And then I'll have a 14. Okay. Now, again, you could just rewrite this as 9x squared minus 8x squared. Like that's perfectly fine, just putting them next to each other. But I'm just trying to be, just trying to be correct here, understanding the associative property because a 9 minus 8 is not the same as an 8 minus 9, right? That order actually matters. So I want to make sure that you are either, doesn't matter if you're going to use addition or just make sure you keep that order the same as how it's written here. So a 9x squared plus a negative 8x squared is just going to be a x squared. Negative 17x plus 6x is going to be a negative 11x. And then we have plus a 14. And therefore that is simplified. Now, this next example, we have some parentheses. And unfortunately, though, we can't really do anything with these parentheses, right? I can't do anything with y plus 4. And in the previous example, we'd want to go ahead and distribute those two, right? But we can't do that because following the order of operations, right? We have parentheses first, which we can't do anything. And then the next thing is exponents. So what we actually have to do here is expand this out. So it's really, really important that you do not do this. So y plus 4 squared does not equal a y squared plus a 16, right? Don't do that. Okay, remember this equals a y plus 4 times a y plus 4. It's just one of those common mistakes that happen with students time and time again. So therefore, we need to actually multiply this out. So we can use our FOIL, okay? And what we get is a y squared plus 4y plus a 16. Therefore, that's going to be a y squared plus a 8y plus a 16. Okay, so that's very, very important. Now, again, remember, that's still inside the parentheses. So the way that we're going to write this would be like a 2 times a y squared plus a 8y plus a 16. Okay, so now we already expanded it, but we still need to multiply everything by 2. And that's going to be minus, we got to expand this one out. Now, hopefully you recognize this is what we call a binomial squared. And what that does is that produces what we call a perfect square trinomial. And so hopefully if you have like, some work with this, you can recognize this. You can do it this way, just like I did here, or you can recognize here, I'm still going to use parentheses here, y squared plus a 2y plus a 1. and therefore that's a plus 1 there, okay? So this is just going to be the expansion I just did in your head. Basically, you're just multiplying these two terms times 2, and then you're squaring the first and the last term. That's how you kind of like can expand it on your own. Over here now, we need to apply the distributive property though. And then here, you might say, what are you expanding here? Well, I'm actually distributing here a -1. So I'm multiplying everything times a -1 to get rid of the parenthesis, because there's nothing really I can simplify inside the parenthesis. There's no more exponent, right? I got rid of the exponent. So now I got to apply my multiplication. And we know this is multiplication because when we have a number outside of the parentheses, the implied operation here is going to be multiplication. So therefore, I'll have a 2y squared plus a 16y plus a 32 minus a y squared minus a 2y minus a 1 plus 1. Okay, now here what I'm going to do is go back and rewrite things. Now again, to preserve everything, you could rewrite everything with addition, or you can just make sure you have the order the same, right? So just don't mess up the order. So if I'm going to do 2y squared, I'm going to do that subtracting by y squared. Then I'll do a 16y minus a 2y. Then I'll do a plus a 32. And then -1 and +1, right? Don't you recognize that those are just going to add to 0? So we'll just leave this as a 32. 2y squared minus y squared is going to be a y squared. 16y minus a 2y is going to be a positive 14y. And therefore, that's going to be a plus a 32. And no, that doesn't add in 16 times 2. Yeah, that doesn't work. Okay. Anyways, that would be our simplified expression.